everybody. Welcome back to the RFL podcast. Last episode, we talked about the NFC and gave our thoughts and previews for that. And today, we're going to be talking about the AFC and giving our opinions as to see who we think is going to come out on top, how we think the divisions are going to stack up. And boy, we had fun last time talking about the NFC and the crazy antics that particularly is going to happen with that East division, I think. But Wobbegong, the AFC is just as interesting.
Yeah, I fully agree. AFC East, again, here also no idea how to predict that. AFC Central was pretty packed last season with three teams. Also, the Browns for some time of the year competed for the title. And AFC West, maybe we get a little bit of a different standing here with the Kansas City Chiefs and the first overall pick. We already teased that a little bit in the last episode. So a lot of interesting teams, and of course it's our conference, so especially interesting for us to talk about all the divisions and all the teams that will compete for a Super Bowl here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's not give ourselves the headache that we did last time and dive into what we think is probably going to be the most difficult division in the East again. Let's start with the Central and talk a little bit about this one. So last year we kind of saw, interesting season sort of play out where the Bengals came out on top with 12 wins, then the Steelers, the Oilers and the Browns. I guess, where would you like to start with this one? I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about last time, I think last season, about the Steelers and were they aging enough. We thought Houston, I think, would come out on top, but boy, did the Bengals prove us wrong last year. And I mean, Wobbegong, we've got to start with him, I think, actually. Do you think the Bengals are going to be the team that proves us wrong again and comes out on top in the Central?
They could be the team to prove us wrong again, because this time I don't think, again, that the Bengals could win it for a second straight year. Maybe I'm a little bit too pessimistic here, but looking at their draft, they did not have a first-round pick since they traded for Alfred Jenkins, wide receiver, 1 season ago, who is not on their team anymore. They let him go on free agency, and I think that is one of the reasons why I don't think the Bengals will win again. They do not have that many quality players on wide receiver. I loved their wide receiver core last year, and that was one of their strengths, getting some playmakers for Steve DeBerg. But this season, maybe a little bit lacking star power. They added some new players in the second, third, and later rounds, but yeah, not that many starters. I also think they did only make one free agency signing with a backup quarterback. So I'm really concerned with their offseason. And right now, I don't think it is enough to win the division again. But yeah, as you introduced the Bengals, they could be the team to prove us wrong again.
Okay, so if we think they are the team that might not prove us wrong this year in terms of some tricky off-season to try and navigate for them, we then have, I think, a series of interesting teams to discuss. So I'm going to start with the Houston Oilers to begin with. A team that I think we all both pegged last year as being we thought they would win this division. We thought they'd probably win it fairly comfortably over the Steelers. Had a really, really good off-season this year. They paid a huge amount to bring in Benny Cunningham, one of the elite sort of tight ends in terms of the whole of the RFL. And the team is absolutely stacked now. So, if we're looking just in terms of the quarterback position, we've got Foots, we've got Manning, we have got good receivers, a really, really good offensive line. The only question mark I have is some of the receiving capability in terms of real elite talent there. But again, on the defensive side, they've got some really fascinating guys in Jackson and Brazil at linebacker position. Cherry, of course, was a pickup I think it was last year, in terms of sort of the free safety position. So for me, I think the Oilers in particular are going to be a really, really good team to watch. And I think that they are probably the one I would still, even though last year, I hate to say it, you let us down in terms of where we thought you'd be, but you're 9-7. I kind of see them back as the division winners in this one.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we will talk about the Steelers as one of the other teams who could win the division in a second. Right now, I think the main two question marks for the Oilers is the edge position and the cornerbacks, which seem to be their weaknesses so far in the defense. But other than that, Cunningham, really interesting addition, adding the tight end as another weapon for Dan Foots. And yeah, the O-line looks really good. Running back room is also pretty deep with Hardeman and Ferguson. So lots of key pieces around the offense and defense, with the exception of cornerback and edge, as said. And yeah, one thing to mention is that they still have 138,000 of salary cap, so they could still make some moves if they recognize during the season maybe they're one trade away from really competing. But yeah, right now I think they can really compete. Awesome linebacker core and especially great free safety and strong safety duo. They will be the favorites to win the division, or should be one of the favorites. And I think they used this offseason to get better, adding a few free agents to fill up their roster and getting in some new starters. Not any notable draft or rookie players here. But other than that, the Oilers are one team that will definitely be up for a deep playoff run.
Yeah, and I think one of the teams that's going to be contending with them for this division title this year is of course the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've lost you out the times that we've talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers being an aging contending team, and I think it's fair to say they're probably not in that contending status anymore, but they are still a very, very good team, and on any given day could probably beat anyone in the RFL. Got still the likes of Bradshaw and sort of Neil, they brought in, so they've still got a bunch of really, really good talent. I'm going to be interested to see how the Steelers do this year. Last year they kind of won 10-6. I think they had a bit of a rocky start to the season. New GM, kind of probably getting used to the league and so on. But I don't think they've got enough necessarily to get past the Oilers this year, just given how well the Oilers have done in terms of the off-season. But I'm going to be interested to see if they... I think they'll be a wild card team, and I'll be interested to see how they do in terms of matchups comes playoff time when we get there. But I mean, do you kind of see that, or do you think they are going to be closer to the Oilers than I'm necessarily predicting at the moment?
I think they could be closer, mainly because they really surprised us in the second half of last year's season. And I talked about the draft in 2 episodes ago. It's one of my favorite drafts, looking at their first and second round picks. I think they did a really good job in adding some young talent, which was very important for this aging roster. Do they still got it to be close to the Oilers, and can the rookies already make an impact? Yeah, right now I'm not sure. So I would agree, Oilers for me are currently the favorite, but right now I think the Steelers could be closer to the Oilers than they will be to maybe the number 3 seed. Again, I think the Bengals right now are one team where I'm maybe a little bit too low, but for me the Steelers currently are team number 2, and have some great talent, especially on edge. We talked about Hampton and Green as the best edge duo last season. And if they can get anywhere close to what they did last season, the Steelers will have a very scary defense and maybe also then a good offense to make the division race closer than you would expect.
Yeah, I think they are pretty much locked in to kind of see out this talent now. Some of the aging guys that they've still got, and it's just whether, same questions last year, is there enough in the tank to kind of get them over the hump? But that brings us to the last team in the AFC Central, which is the Cleveland Browns. I really like their pickups in terms of free agency. I really like the additions of Concar and Shepard. I thought they were really nice sort of pickups to kind of solidify that offensive line, to hopefully give Krieg a bit of a chance, really, who had a bit of a difficult year last year, to say the least, getting sacked 36 times. So I like what they did. I don't see them having enough on the board elsewhere to kind of get them into sort of the division sort of central contending status. But having said that, this is pretty much what I said about the Bengals last year. So I guess my question to you, Wobbegong, is Am I being too low on the Browns, or do you think that they are still probably going to be, unfortunately, towards the back end of this Central Division?
Yeah, right now I would say that they will maybe be team number 4 in this division. That does not mean that they will be bad. I mean, they had an impressive last season and they did not lose too many key players here. As you said, they made a few quality free agency signings, but the draft was maybe a little bit not good enough to get a team number 3 or 2. We talked about Gary Reasons in the first round as one pick we did not like, the linebacker. So not sure what their plan was there, but if he works out, of course, with Mecklenburg, they will have an incredibly good linebacker core. Also, Bob Swenson should be the linebacker number 3 here. They have some good players, also star power on strong safety with Ken Easley. And but I think right now wide receiver is maybe the part where I'm struggling a little bit. Should be the worst wide receiver core in the division right now, if I remember correctly. That could be the deciding factor for them, that Creek does not have too many playmakers, maybe, and that they could be the 4th place again. But I realistically see them winning 7 games, something like that. So the Browns won't be bad, but maybe not good enough to make the playoffs. As you said, they could prove us wrong again. But so far, looking at the roster and what they did in the offseason, maybe not enough to win the title, but especially the defense will be the better part for the Browns. And if the offense can surprise us, everything is up for them to maybe be the 2nd team in the division. I don't think that they have a realistic shot to win it just yet, but maybe a second place with a good performance of Creek, and the offense is up for grasp here.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of the AFC Central, are you with me? Do you kind of agree? I think the Oilers are going to come out on top in this one.
Yeah, I think I agree here. I think the Steelers are closer, or at least in my mind, closer to the Oilers than we think. But yeah, right now I would rank Oilers, Steelers, Bengals, and Browns as a close 4th place.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Bengals are the ones is the one that I'm not sure on. Really, they could end up surprising us again, but I think the others are pretty much in where we slotted them, I think. But let's move on to the West Division. So look, we've had a bit of a topsy-turvy off-season with this division in particular. GM changes, all sorts of things happening here. The Raiders kind of comfortably ran away with it last year, winning 11 games, and then pretty much everyone else came behind. And then we also had the Kansas City Chiefs, who we mentioned were in a complete rebuild last year, sort of propping up this West Division. But let's start with Kansas first, because they are the interesting one to talk about from the perspective of they've finally added in probably one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've seen in a little while, and that's even saying last year's rookie quarterback situation that happened in the draft before this. But Steve Young is coming; he looks absolutely phenomenal. The team won a grand total of 1 game last year. How many do you see them winning this year with the addition of Steve Young plus some other things they brought in as well?
Yeah, more than one, but to already clearly state that here, not close to win the division. Maybe they can surprise us. They had a lot of additions in the free agency. So if they can get the band together and get some quality players in here, they could surprise us. So most of the free agency signings should be replacement level starters, maybe with some exceptions, but I like what they built on the core. Steve Young is the clear superstar of the team. And then when we look at the top 6 players, 4 of the top 6 players play on the O-line. So they have incredible help for Steve Young with rookie, old, and 2nd-year player Tuine on tackle. So 2 young, incredibly good tackles that protect Young. I like what they built here, but I think they are still 1 or 2 seasons away of adding more superstar power, more quality starters. especially on defense. So the offense looks really exciting, but the defense, I really have no player on defense where I get excited about. And I think this is the part that differentiates them from maybe of the top teams here in this division. I think the offense could be very fun, but the defense is still far away from competing for the playoffs. Maybe they prove us wrong and no star power is needed and they just have a good unit. But so far, I think maybe 5 wins would be a big improvement for them and a realistic range where they could be at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fantastically interesting to watch this year, just because I can't wait to see this offense play. I think the line's good. I think they've got some actual good, decent weapons in there that, on paper, are not necessarily the best. They're not going to be like elite Super Bowl contending capability, but they are going to be able to put numbers on the board. And for me, that's going to be interesting to watch. I agree with you. The defensive line is probably one of the worst out there. But that being said, it's going to be fun to watch them. They could put up 20 plus points a game. They could not conceding 20 plus points a game. So it means everything's going to be a bit of a shootout with them. In terms of course, I kind of agree with you. They're going to win more than one game. That's a given. Given just even adding Steve Young to this roster is going to win more than one game. I had them pegged at sort of 4 to 5 wins as well this year. That's not knowing any of the schedule they've got to play, etc. I think there's enough in them to just cause a few upsets, and that's going to be great progress for this Kansas team that was a completely difficult situation, complete rebuild, and real tough one to kind of come into the league at. And adding more talent next year, we could be sitting here talking about them being in the wildcard slot quite comfortably next year. So yeah, that's how I kind of see Kansas. I don't see them being at the top or contending or division title or wildcard really. I see them in that 4 to 5 win slot and an interesting one to watch. I mean, they'd be a team that I think if you had an NFL pass for to watch the games, you'd certainly tune in just to see whether Steve Young could put up stupid amounts of yards in a game. It'd be fun to see. But let's talk a little bit about some of the other guys in the division. So let's jump into the Raiders. The Raiders obviously had a GM change this offseason. Won 11 games last year. We're pretty much comfortable in terms of taking this West last year. A whole host of roster changes that I honestly cannot go through off the top of my head. But the team is still in good shape. Still got some good talent in there. Do you kind of see this team taking the division again, or do you see them probably taking that backward step given just the sheer volume of talent and transition that they've had this offseason?
I think they could win the division mainly because of the defense they have. Are pretty good on free safety, strong safety. They have a really good cornerback group. They have a good defensive foundation, also quality starters on linebackers. No superstars, but also after the trade, at least Mike Butler does not hold out, so he will start day one on edge. So they have some pieces there. Added, as you said, a lot of players in free agency and the draft. So it'll be interesting to see if a few players can have an impact role there. I think the biggest question mark here is the quarterback situation. With the Raiders, we're talking one of the best O-lines here in the division. But quarterback, the best quarterback is Doug Williams, 81 overall, who played a really good season last year. Not elite by any means, but yeah, that will be interesting if he's good enough to lead the Raiders. And when we talk about the other teams in this division, they have either a star quarterback or a star running back. The Raiders don't have any of that, but they have solid playmakers. They proved that last season. And I don't think that based on the additions they made, there's any reason right now to doubt the Raiders. Right now, I would pick them as the favorite to win the division again. Maybe it's getting closer than we think, but especially the really, really good O-line and incredibly good secondary is what the Raiders, they will have a very, very high floor based on those 2 units.
Yeah, I mean, I think Williams is a good quarterback. He's proven he can play at the elite level. The season before that, he was absolutely phenomenal. So I kind of don't necessarily see that quarterback issue that you've mentioned there. But I also have to disagree with you. I don't think the Raiders are going to take this division this year. I think this division is going to go to the San Diego Chargers. I think that they had a bit of a downward year last year. They won 6 games, but you've got to think GM change, establishing themselves, getting used to how this league works a little bit. They've had some really good off-season signings. I like Bowden, sort of the shore up the sort of offensive line. Schultz in terms of offensive weapon. I really like the Miller pickup as well. To be fair, he's not an elite tight end, but he's solid. And then when I look at this team on paper, I mean they've still got Sims, who is just a phenomenal quarterback. I like the running back locker room. I think Craig, Spencer, and Wilson will be fine. Good offensive line, good receiving options. Cornerback situation is the bit that I think might let them down. But I kind of like the rest of it. I like Jeff Coate in terms of the edge position. They've got guys who can kind of serviceable in terms of the offensive line. Odom is a nice little guy at linebacker. I think Weimer as the strong safety is pretty solid. So I think that it's going to be interesting. I have the Chargers pegged above the Raiders, but I have the Raiders having more talent than the Chargers. And I think that the difference is going to come in the game planning strategy side. That's just based on evidence of. I know Justin's been in the league before, but he's come back in as a new GM. It's going to take some time for him to get that Raiders team up running how he wants it to play, I think. And I think on the other side, the Chargers less talent than the Raiders, but I think the GM's been in. Jed's going to have this set up ready to go from day one, and I think that is going to be the thing that's going to twist it for the Chargers rather than being the Raiders this year. That being said, I think it's going to be very tight between those two. I think we could end up in a situation where 8-9 wins kind of wins this division, and I think it could go down to the last game of the season. But that's how I see it playing out for the Chargers and the Raiders.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are definitely up for the challenge. The thing I struggle about the most is the defense, because I agree the Chargers offense on paper should definitely be better than the Raiders. They have good playmakers, tight end, wide receiver, as also the better quarterback. Phil Simms is one of the better quarterbacks here in this division. Good O-line, so no question about the offense. But yeah, the thing I said the Raiders should win it, in my opinion, is the defense. The Raiders just have a way higher floor. Here for the Chargers, we're talking about a lot of rookies or second-year starters, especially on linebacker. You mentioned Odom, but outside of him, the 3 starters behind him should be second-year players. So they did a really good job over the last 2 years in adding talent here on the defensive side. But I think that's also what makes them a wild card. Are they already good enough? Do they already have enough experience to be one of the better units? So far, I think the Raiders defense should be better on paper. But if the Chargers can put up a solid unit here, they should be very, very close to the division title, if not maybe winning it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, I think. And given that the Chargers have a bunch of cap room, I don't necessarily see this team staying status quo in terms of that defensive talent. I think they will add pieces there, either before the season or as the season goes on, which I think will edge it a little bit more towards them. But there is another team, there's 2 other teams, but there's one other team that we need to talk about in terms of, I think, the division contending, who's going to be sitting there screaming probably at us, going, why are you not talking about us as well being contending, which is the Denver Broncos, who won 5 games last year. Had a very active off-season, brought in a whole host of talent. I mean, they're going to be sitting there going, well, we brought in a very good running back. We brought in some really good talent in terms of the offensive line, in terms of the defensive line, and we're in a much better position this year. And we also have that elite quarterback. So why are you guys not talking about us taking the division? What do you think? Won 5 games last year. Just to give you a sense of who they brought in as well. Bo Matthews, good running back. Sui, good running back. Weaver, good linebacker. Solid in terms of receiving options in Freeman's John and JV Kane. So they've added a fair amount of talent to this team. Why don't you see them as being a division contender this year?
Very close to the Chargers in terms of overall setup. I think their offense is really close to competing for the title. They have, of course, one of the better quarterbacks. Again, here, David Woodley, and that's why I said earlier, the Raiders maybe with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, or sorry, not in the league, in this division. He's good, but David Woodley also looks really good on paper. Only 3 interceptions last season. He has some playmakers, especially with the first round edition of Irving Fryer. So he will be a very interesting player to watch. Running back, I think we have a lot of quantity here. 4 players who are very, very similar. So let's see who will be the starter there. O-line looks solid, but again, we're talking about defense here, and that could be the deciding factor, which brings me to the conclusion that the Raiders could win it. But yeah, defensive tackle, not too good here. Edge is decent, but not elite. Strong safety, similar point here. Linebacker and cornerback looks really good. Maybe a little bit better cornerback too, but especially the linebacker core I like. So for me, Broncos and Chargers are very close together. I have the Raiders at 1 because they are the more complete team, but Broncos elite offense, but maybe struggling on defense. Will be interesting to see if an incredibly good linebacker core is enough with solid starters all around that to already compete for the title. I think they're closer than we think they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Broncos have had a very good offseason. And I agree with you. They've got an elite offense. That's going to be really, really fun to see how that plays. For me, the thing that's holding them back is sort of the back situation on defense. I would not trust 3 of those 4 cornerbacks with anything, to be perfectly honest with you, given that their tackling ability is so low. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on that linebacking talent that they have, because up front they're not going to put as much pressure on the quarterback as well, just based on talent here. So I think they're going to have to game plan so well on defense to really make up the shortfall. And I think that's going to just be a little bit too much for the Broncos this year. That being said, they won 5 games last year. I see them being a 500 team this year. So I'm not necessarily suggesting they're going to be a 5-11 team this year again. I see them making good progress. I just don't see them being in that division title status with the Raiders and the Chargers this year. But yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much disagreeing with the top on this one. So I think you've got a clear going Raiders. I'm going San Diego. We haven't talked about Seattle, so we probably should just quickly mention that they are going for a complete rebuild. Already looking to next season, I think. But there is, no surprise there, I think, given that they pretty much announced that was the trade deadline last year. So Seattle, I think, will be down the bottom. And then I think we're kind of saying we agree that Denver's probably going to be the 3rd slot, Kansas is going to be the 4th slot, but we're disagreeing on that top 2.
Yeah, for me, as mentioned multiple times, I think it's the Raiders. And just to follow up what you said about the Seahawks, I think they did a really good first job of the rebuild in adding interesting players, especially throughout the first round with 3 picks there. And setting themselves up for a longer term rebuild. I think the Seahawks right now should be the favorites to come out last of the division. And hopefully we will talk about them in the preview next season as one of the upcoming rising, exciting teams. Right now, I think they're still 1 or 2 seasons away and in a complete rebuild mode.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to our final division in the AFC. We are nearly there, Wobbegong. We've nearly covered the whole of the RFL, so over 2 episodes. But let's talk about the AFC East. Well, I mean, to be fair, we got this one completely and utterly wrong last year, and I think we both admitted it in a couple of episodes ago. But we kind of see this one playing out as similar to the NFC East, and it simply didn't. I mean, the Patriots ran away with it. The Bills came second. And everyone else pretty much had a losing record. So I'll be honest with you, I kind of have no idea how this division is going to play out, given that we are both in it. But let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, we should probably start with the likes of the Patriots, who had an absolutely incredible season last year, 15-1. Looked like they were going to be Super Bowl nailed-on contenders, and unfortunately came up scuppered in the playoffs, as you do sometimes when you have these one-game showdowns. But looking at this team again on paper, they've added some good talent in terms of like Wright and Miller. Pretty much going into the season with some additional talent on the roster. They're a 15-1 team. I mean, can anyone get close to them in terms of the AFC East this year?
I think it's pretty close, and we will come to the standings at the end. And I try to not give anything away throughout talking about the teams. But yeah, as you said, they won the division last year, and we did not talk about them too much because, not many offseason moves, but they maybe refined their strategy. They looked pretty unstoppable nearly whole the season, and got even better with the 2 running back additions, a sleeper on linebacker in round 3, and a second round edge player who should immediately go into the rotation. I think they're a really complete team, maybe except from strong safety, where they're currently trying to put in Fred Marion, who's a former free safety. I think that's the only question mark they have. But other than that, all positions look really good. And they should be one of the favorites to win the division title again and make a deep playoff run. Incredibly good team led by Steve Grogan on quarterback, who has some playmakers now, new playmakers on back with an exciting rookie, and in Robert Miller, a 9-year experienced running back who should still be able to play a big role here in this Patriots offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very hard for me to suggest this division is going to be close when we're sitting here and talking about a 15-win team who has basically added some talent this year in the off-season. I think the Patriots are going to be up there. Do I think they're going to take the division? I'll hold that one back for the moment. But again, when you've got a 15-win team and you blew the competition out the water last year and adding more talent, it's really, really hard to vote against you. And then that brings us down to the Bills, the previous Super Bowl winners from 2 seasons ago, but the Super Bowl finalists this year. Won 13 games last year. I guess your off-season has been, again, not particularly dramatic in a sense. Status quo, I think, has been sort of the thing I would describe from you again, Wobbegong.
Yeah, I would agree. I managed to keep the band together with 1 or 2 exceptions, as always, but all key players returned to the Bills. And I think this offseason, the headline is maybe future. I the running back in Ernest Biner in round 1, who was my target all along. So really happy that I got him there, and he was better than expected. And he should compete with Tony Nathan for the starting running back job. And to everyone who listens, maybe Tony Nathan is a trade target for anyone out there next season. Let's see how Biner performs. But yeah, looking at the future, I think he was a very important addition, and getting in a star backup running back was one of my key holes, which shows that the Buffalo Bills should be pretty complete. And trading for a 5th round sleeper, Sandy Osiecki, who could be the quarterback of the future. I think this is one discussion to take. I can already confirm that Cliff Stout will be the unquestioned starter for the season. But yeah, maybe depending on injuries, he also had some the last few years or performances. Maybe we traded for our future starting quarterback. He's still far away when we look at his player skills and Josiecki, but this offseason was maybe centered around the future. So this team should hopefully be pretty similar to last season's. And I think, should be there for competing for the playoffs and hopefully not surprise me in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, Oziecki was a phenomenal sleeper pickup. I'll be interested if he holds out in the following years, given his contract's only 40k.
Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be an interesting debate with that one. But my observations of the Bills is got to the Super Bowl last year. You added some talent. You're going to be up there again. And again, I'm not going to necessarily comment in terms of who I think is going to win the division yet. I kind of do see the Bills and the Patriots kind of being up there on top, though. But, of course, we'll see what happens. And one team I think we do need to talk about in terms of being up there and contending is going to be the Miami Dolphins, who we talked a lot through the podcast last year in terms of they just got unlucky with injuries and things. But but there is a silly amount of talent on this team. Dan Marino, another year of him. They added Roland James, a really, really good free safety. And in Mike Tice, who's a solid sort of linebacker. But the main thing I think from this team is that Dickerson is back healthy again, which was I think it was a huge miss for them last year. That really tanked some of their projections. They probably went from being a winning team to a six win team, which is certainly not where I don't think so we want this team to be. But I guess, yeah, Miami Dolphins, do you see them being up there with the likes of the Patriots and yourselves in the Bills?
We'll come to that in the predictions, but to already say I like their off-season moves. Two good second-round players that they drafted, especially the free agency signings, getting Mark Wilson as backup quarterback in case the injuries strike again for the Dolphins. But Mark Wilson should be a very exciting backup as far as you can get excited about backups. Dickerson needs to stay healthy, but I like the addition in Mark Tice for the tight end room. 82 hands, he should be a very solid tight end and additional playmaker for Dan Marino in his second year. And also one of the biggest holes for this defense was free safety, and getting by far the best free safety available in free agency in Roland James was a really good move. So not any splash moves this offseason compared to last year, but getting all those exciting rookies in their second season with the experience, especially in offense, this quarterback running back combination is very interesting. And on defense, we're of course talking about defensive end as the key position for them. I think they're a very, very interesting team, and they should be the team with a big improvement compared to last season. Maybe they can already compete for the title in this division. Maybe they're still 1 or 2 seasons away. But developing the young players, I think, is the headline of this season for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we pegged them as contenders last year, and I think mainly injury reasons they didn't necessarily live up to that. But good off season from them this year, and again they've got a silly amount of talent available to them going into this year. Let's talk a little bit about the let's talk a bit about my team in terms of the Indianapolis Colts. So last year, again, 6-win team with the Dolphins. Brought in a bunch of players through free agency primarily this year, mainly to fill kind of holes, I think. So filling up the quarterback position, getting Mitchell in terms of the running back position, given the retirements that happened there, were kind of the main big things in terms of this team. But I'm going to throw it over to you in terms of your views on the Colts going into this year.
It will be interesting to see if you can figure out your offense and improve your team. Last season, I think I had you pretty high in the projections for the division, and you did not come close to the playoffs as predicted. So maybe John Elway can have a better second season. He was not bad by any means, but with Steve Largent as the best wide receiver here in the league as a target. I think you acquired him during the trade deadline last season, so the first full season on the Colts should be very exciting. And as you said, lots of free agency additions, especially interesting to see the playmakers on offense. So this offense should be very, very exciting. On defense, this is the part where I'm currently unsure, mainly because of experience on linebacker is maybe the one position. I mean, I have Carson, so but maybe the linebacker position 3 with aging McNeil, if this is one weakness. But as you can see, I'm trying to find a weakness here on the roster. Maybe the second edge player, but your free agency, strong free safety, strong safety, cornerback position all looks very good. So maybe a third linebacker and a second edge is what I would currently say for the defense. On paper, this team looks really good, but also really old. So really interesting to see if the old players are still hungry enough to compete and maybe get your Colts close to the division title. think you have a realistic chance. But yeah, everything can happen in this division.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be brutally honest with everybody who's listening, I think we're going to be hopefully competing for a wild card slot this year. I think that's kind of where I see this team now. I think last year we didn't live up to the hype in where I thought we would be, but I think there's still enough about this team to be in that wild card slot. And if we can get there and make some noise, that would be a fantastic season for us this year, given how mixed bag we were last year, really. But before we talk about sort of the East and how we see it play out, there is one other team we need to talk about who have had a really good off season, which is the Jets. So they brought in, I believe the most interesting acquisition I think they brought in was Perry, sort of the strong safety, I believe. Bear with me, I'll just double check. Yeah, Rod Perry, the strong safety, who they who's had a bit of a decline in training camp, it looks like. But this team last year was obviously going through a bit of a retooling phase. It won 4 games. They did have an interesting draft though, which bringing in likes of Mass was a nice pickup in terms of the first round. I liked him at defensive tackle. Bringing in Daniel, we talked about where they sort of did that trade down from the couple of episodes ago, is obviously going to really help them in terms of their back situation. Probably, I think, Wobbegong, the least talented team on paper in the East, which is not necessarily saying they are completely untalented. It's just given the rest of the East, how the AFC East looks like. But they only won 4 games last year. I think they're probably going to win a few more games this year. Where do you kind of see them sitting and stacking up against the rest of the AFC East?
Well, you will get my biggest surprise here. I was very close to pick the Jets as a surprise division winner. But to be fair to the Patriots after last season, I cannot do that. But right now, to only give a small preview at the standings, I think the Jets could be the surprise of this division and come out second here. Because I think on paper, they have one of the best rosters in this division, especially with the pickups. Cornerback was one huge question mark I had in the offseason. But well, they added the best cornerback in the draft in Eugene Daniel via a trade down, and they were also possible for them to get in mass one of the better defensive tackles. Yeah, I have
We haven't
no
even talked about
idea.
Matthews here, Wobbegong. We haven't even talked about Clay Matthews, bringing them in just before the off season had begun.
Yeah, I mean, this incredible trade, in addition to the free agency signings, they signed Alfred Jenkins. I mentioned that earlier as a negative point for the Bengals. Now the Jets got him for free. So really key free agency additions, really key draft additions. They had a really interesting defense already last year. The offense was not clicking just yet. So if they can figure that, especially with Alfred Jenkins, maybe on wide receiver, since the first round picks, were there to get the defense even better. I think the Jets have maybe the second best defense on paper. So if they can get the offense clicking, and that's what my prediction is, they could be realistically the second best team. I mean, anyone could be first or last place in this division. And not to be unfair to the NFC East, and maybe we're wrong again. But I think really this year, the AFC East is closer than any other division, if not for injuries. But the Jets are, in my opinion, the most improved team over the offseason, with really exciting prospects all over the offense and defense, with no significant holes here. I love their offseason moves.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, I think they are probably the least talented team in the AFC East, but they have a lot of top-heavy talent. So, I mean, let's start thinking about the AFC East and where we see this playing out. I'll give you mine. I think you said obviously the Jets in 2. I don't see the Jets in 2. I think it's still going to be Patriots and Buffalo taking the top 2 slots. I then honestly see the other 3 all very similar in terms of where they could end up. That means they could end up with 6 wins. They could end up with 4 wins. I really don't know. Or you could end up with more. But I could see the third team from the wildcard slot coming from this AFC East again. But I think if I had to put money on it, I probably would say I see it being, I think, Jets, Colts, Miami. as the player of the AFC division. Just because I don't actually want to be in the bottom and say I don't want to put myself down in the bottom. But Wobbegong, you said Jets too. So where do you see the Bills and the Patriots kind of landing in this?
Yeah, so we're closer than I thought because, Patriots at 1, I think with the last season, they deserve to be the predicted division winners here. The Jets at 2, Buffalo at 3, and then I think it could be Colts and Miami, similar to what you had. And it hurts so much to put Miami at 5th in the division because they're so incredibly good. Yeah, but with that said, I think all teams could have a winning record and compete for a playoff spot until the last 2 or 3 weeks. That will be very interesting. And I mean, we're playing each other twice, so there will be some wins and losses that we steal from each other. But I love all the teams. I think we're all pretty close together. So maybe not that top heavy. Let's see. But I think the rest of the division should be closer together. Again, no idea if we're remotely close to what the AFC East will be in the end. But that's how I would rank the teams right now, mainly because I want to give a shout out at my favorite team of season, the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be so interesting to see how it plays out. The really interesting thing about this, which we won't necessarily dwell on too much today, but I think the AFC East has got to play the NFC East in some games this year.
Yes,
take
in
Dallas
all division games.
So it's going to be really interesting because those are the two that we kind of see being neck and neck and really talented, sort of close in terms of we don't know necessarily who's going to come out on top. That's going to come out a complete other spanner in this, and we haven't got time to try and break that down specifically on this podcast. But another thing just to throw into the fire there. But yeah, I mean, God, man, it's going to be fun. I mean, the whole RFL is going to be fun this year, I think, in terms of how we see things play out. But let's close out the AFC in terms of our tiering list. I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of set the tiers. I did it for the NFC. How do you see the AFC kind of looking?
Yeah, it's tough to put a tier list out there. I think Patriots, Jets, and Bills together with the Oilers would be tier 1. Maybe it's really hard to put in tiers because, as I said, I see the rest of the AFC East and especially also the Pittsburgh Steelers closer, and someone will win the AFC West. And maybe I'm a little bit too low, but I would rank the division winner of the AFC West maybe behind the top 3 AFC East teams and the Steelers and the Oilers. I think the other teams currently are better. Yeah, I think I will be surprised with at least 1 or 2 AFC West teams. And behind that, I think, we get the Bengals, the Broncos, the Chargers that we already talked about, the rest of the AFC East, of course, depending on who will win it or not. But yeah, as you said, with the schedule, it will be tough to get 2 wild cards out of the AFC East. I don't think that we will get that. I think 1 AFC East and 1 AFC Central. So yeah, it would be fair to have the Steelers in this kind of 1B tier. I think for me, it was way easier to put in the tiers for the NFC. AFC is really hard to predict. But yeah, for most teams, we already mentioned if we think they are a playoff team or not. But yeah, this is or would be my tiers as vague as I could define that at this point of the season. I'm really looking forward to our in-season head-scratching moments where we thought, well, looking back at our predictions, what did we even say here? But so far, Oilers, Jets, and Patriots, Bills, number 1, and rest of AFC East, Steelers, and Raiders, tier 2, and then the rest of the AFC West, and together with the Bengals, maybe tier 3, to sum that struggling of tier making up.
I'm very happy to go with your tier list for the AFC because I have absolutely no idea how to do that from the start. Apart from the Patriots, Bills, and Oilers probably being up there, everything else is a complete mess for the AFC. Just because there is a lot of very good teams in that middle sort of stack really that could end up going anywhere from winning 6 games to winning 14 games. It's just, I really don't know how that's going to work out. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. We're going to have some head scratching moments. We did last year. We got the AFC East completely wrong, and we're probably going to get the AFC East completely wrong again, given we're in that division.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be great to see, and there's no doubt there will be head-turning moments. There will be interesting news, trades, activity, fascinating results, winning teams that we'd never predicted, like the Bengals again, and all of that good stuff to come in the RFL this year. So definitely going to be tuning in to see how that plays out. But any final thoughts that you have, Wobbegong, in terms of the AFC or in the RFL this year in general?
I would love to see some surprises, especially also when we're talking about the Super Bowl. Maybe 2 teams that we cannot think of right now will be in the Super Bowl. I think that would be very exciting, not only for the league, but for all the GMs who haven't won a Super Bowl yet as well. So good luck to everyone out there for the season. And yeah, let's speak again when we played a few games and already have a first idea of the good AFC and NFC teams and the surprises. It was fun to preview everything. So good luck to everyone. And yeah, see you next time.
Absolutely. Best of luck to everyone. And we'll be back as interesting news, things happen across the league, trades and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, best of luck to everyone and good luck in the season.